Welcome to the first episode of my exotic tier list, where I go through each exotic weapon in Destiny 2 in the order they are listed in the Exotic Collection Volume 1 book, which you can get from the Bungie store. At the end of each video, I slap the exotic weapon I'm covering onto a tier list, with the hopes that as we get further through the series, we get a very interesting looking tier list. In this episode we are covering the Borealis, which is an energy sniper rifle which was in the game at launch back in 2017, at least if you had a PlayStation. If you had an Xbox or a PC, you had to wait 1 year until Forsaken released in order to get your hands on the sniper. I'm so glad that sort of thing has stopped now. I had a surprisingly fun time using the Borealis after what felt like years since I last used it, which it probably was, to be honest. The main gimmick of the Borealis is the Fundamentals exotic perk. This perk allows you to cycle through 3 modes using the reload button by holding it in, and the 3 modes are Solar, Arc, and Void, which are the 3 light elements in the Destiny universe. So each mode actually has a bit of an extra perk. Solar says it increases the reload speed and the aerial effectiveness. Arc says it increases the handling and the range, and Void says it increases the stability and the aim assist. This isn't quite true. I did some testing, and the reload speed in particular is entirely wrong. From my testing, I saw that Solar and Void had almost identical reload speeds. Void always edged out Solar in a few frames, and that was very strange. I put it down to error at first, but it consistently did it, even with the catalyst, which also speeds up the reload speed a bit. Arc was consistently slower. So Solar and Void roughly was 2.3 seconds, with Void being a wee bit quicker. Arc was about 2.8 seconds. This was bizarre, because Void isn't listed as having a faster reload speed, and it seems to be faster than the Solar mode, which is just strange. All the other things sort of line up. Arc does in fact aim down sight quicker with the increased handling. It is roughly 0.316 seconds, and Solar and Void is roughly 0.36 seconds, so half a second difference really, which doesn't really matter in PvE, but if you're playing Crucible or something, it can probably matter quite a lot. Void also has stability listed, which affects your recoil, and in doing testing I discovered that Void roughly has half of the recoil that Solar and Arc do. At least in the vertical sense. Horizontally it seems to be practically the same. I didn't notice any difference whenever I was actually using the weapon, but I did tend to incline a bit more towards Void, I felt, so that could have been why. Aim assist I didn't test. Range I found very hard to test, and aerial effectiveness that I don't care about at all. Ionic Return is the second perk, which means that breaking a shield matching the element that the Borealis is currently in refills the magazine from reserves and grants bonus damage rounds. These bonus damage rounds, from the research that I did online, seems to do about 40% extra damage, which is quite good, but the Borealis doesn't do absurd amount of damage even with bonus damage, so it's not too amazing. Using a bonus damage round to break another shield of a matching element just refreshes the perk as well, so you just activate it again or increase the timer and such. Funky, I don't think it's that important. If you want to use it as a viable option, Borealis that is, it definitely contributes, but in my fun factor testing, it didn't really matter, to be honest. And it takes so much time to just swap between the mode, even though it is quite quick, wasting maybe even a second between having to shoot an enemy to think what element do I need to be in here, what mode do I need, is a bit too much thinking, to be honest. The Catalyst requires 150 kills with each mode, which means 450 kills in total, which isn't really that bad, especially compared to some other Catalyst challenges out there. The main hurdle that I ran into was ammo, which is why I then put 2 special ammo finders on my helmet to begin with, and then I put a third one on after just to see what the difference was, and that really helps. Just in general with the Borealis, or any energy weapons I suppose, it does help a lot, but the Borealis really benefits from it. With the 3 ammo finders I basically had constant ammo for it, which was great. The Catalyst itself increases the reload speed of the weapon, and it does it for each mode, and we see the same trend that I saw with my testing of the non-Catalyst version with the Catalyst version. So Solar and Void both approximately come out to 2.13 seconds, with Void still again being a couple frames faster. It is marginal, but it does affect it a tiny bit, and Arc came out to 2.5 seconds. It is noticeable that Arc is slower. It's very noticeable. It's even noticeable that the Catalyst makes all the modes faster, but there's not a discernible difference between the Solar and the Void reload speeds. It's frames of a difference. It's not noticeable. It is just rather bizarre that Void is quicker than Solar, even though Solar's the one which lists increased reload speed, and I genuinely wonder if it was intended or if it's a bug even. I had a rather enjoyable time using the Borealis. I used it in a mix of activities, but I didn't try to use it competitively in the likes of raids or dungeons or anything like that. Using it in strikes, in the new seasonal content with the Onslaught playlist and just patrol and the such It was really fun. Part of it was just because snipers in Destiny 2 tend to be a bit nice to use, but I also really enjoyed cycling through the different modes. I quite enjoyed that each mode had slightly different characteristics, which just made a bit of quirkiness and added character to the weapon. And I also liked the UI changes that you see whenever you're looking down the scope. The scope changes from red for solar to purple for void to blue for arc, and the entire weapon also changes color whenever you're looking at the 3D model when you're holding it. I think that's amazing. The ornament also, at least ornament that I have, also looks really cool and does the exact same color changing, which I think is just an amazing touch. It was doing surprising amounts of damage in the likes of Onslaught, where I was one-shotting or two-shotting yellow bar enemies sometimes, and in the Pale Heart I was able to one-shot yellow bar knights even sometimes, and it was rather good. So overall I did have quite a fun time with the Borealis. I did quite enjoy its gimmick with the fundamentals perk and changing through the modes, but it's not a weapon which I would consider taking into harder content such as dungeons or anything. If I wanted a weapon to easily break elemental shield on combatants, I'd probably use the likes of Arbalest before thinking about Borealis. That brings us on to the tier list, and since this is the first episode, I will briefly go over what each tier means. S is where I expect my favourite exotics to land. A is for exotics which I do really like and would use quite regularly, but aren't quite my favourite. B is for exotics which I do like and could see myself use again. C are for exotics which I'm quite neutral about, don't feel positive or negative about. D is for the exotics where I have a bizarre hatred or dislike for. And then finally, there's the trash, if I want them to get in the tray. I had quite a fun time with Borealis, and I did really like its main gimmick with the 3 different modes that I can swap between, and how much character that give the weapon. So whilst I did enjoy the weapon, realistically, once I put it down and move on to the next exotic in the series, I'm probably not going to use it that often, and it has been years since I last used it. Therefore, I'm going to put it into the B category. Please let me know your opinions of the Borealis down in the comments section, where it would be in your version of this tier list, or whether or not you think it should be in the trash. The next episode in the series will be about the Arc Trace Rifle Cold Heart, but for now I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.